nervous intern in a strange government office where every missing sock in the world is catalogued. On his first day, he discovers a glowing, twitching sock that opens portals to other dimensions. With eccentric mentor Harold, pragmatic Mina, and the mysterious office cat, Mr. Tiddles, Elliot uncovers a conspiracy within the bureau clerks plotting to weaponize the portals. As worlds collide and order unravels, Elliot must balance chaos and control to protect the whimsical magic hidden in the mundane. A witty, surreal adventure about bureaucracy, wonder, and the power of curiosity. Elliot's first day at the Bureau of Lost Socks was, by all reasonable accounts, exactly as uneventful as he had feared it would be. The building itself was an architectural monument to monotony, vast, windowless, and filled with the faint but persistent scent of old paper and forgotten dreams. As he stepped through the heavy glass doors, a wave of nervous anticipation washed over him, mingling with a growing sense of absurdity. Here he was, a fresh-faced intern clutching a flimsy folder of orientation papers, about to lose himself in the labyrinthine corridors of an office dedicated solely to the mysterious disappearance of socks. From the outset, the sheer volume of paperwork was staggering. Elliot found himself surrounded by towering filing cabinets that stretched toward the ceiling, their drawers crammed with mismatched socks catalogued under categories so obscure he suspected many of the clerks themselves had forgotten their meaning. The hum of fluorescent lights, mixed with the shuffling of papers and the low murmur of clerical voices, created a relentless white noise that seemed designed to lull newcomers into a state of bureaucratic coma. Elliot's desk was a cramped cubicle decorated with dog-eared manuals and a small, wilting fern that had seen better days. Ink stains adorned his fingers already, the result of fumbling with pens that seemed to leak at the most inconvenient moments. He glanced down at his feet, where, in a deliberately ironic gesture, he wore mismatched socks, one striped, one polka-dotted, a small rebellion against the otherwise dreary environment. As he began his tedious task of sorting and filing, Elliot noticed a faint twitching movement from the corner of his eye. Turning his head, he spotted a lone sock, unlike any he had seen before. It was a simple cotton sock, but it shimmered faintly, as if lit from within by a soft, otherworldly glow. The sock twitched again, almost as if it had a pulse. Elliot blinked, wondering if the office lighting was playing tricks on him. Yet there it was, a sock that defied the dull laws of the bureau and seemed to possess a secret life of its own. Curiosity overpowered his initial hesitation. He reached out tentatively, fingertips brushing the sock's fabric. It was warm, almost vibrantly so, and when he lifted it, a soft buzzing filled the air, reminiscent of a distant thunderstorm. Elliot's heart quickened. Could it be that the endless piles of socks were more than just lost garments? Was there something hidden beneath the layers of bureaucracy and paperwork? The office cat, Mr. Tiddles, appeared suddenly, weaving through Elliot's legs with a grace that belied the monotony of the surroundings. The tabby stopped beside the glowing sock, ears twitching as it stared intently. A low, knowing purr rumbled from Mr. Tiddles' throat, sending an inexplicable shiver down Elliot's spine. The cat's reaction was unsettling yet oddly comforting, as if it understood the enigma before them. Before Elliot could ponder further, a shadow loomed nearby. Clerk number 42, a man whose very presence seemed to embody the soul-crushing essence of paperwork, approached silently. His crisp suit and meticulously adjusted glasses betrayed an obsession with order. He cast Elliot a wary glance, muttering something about the importance of filing socks properly and the dangers of disrupting the system. Then, without another word, he disappeared back into the maze of cabinets. Elliot sat back, the peculiar sock cradled in his hands, feeling a spark of something he hadn't felt in a long time, genuine wonder. The Bureau of Lost Socks was no ordinary office, and this was no ordinary day. Somewhere beneath the layers of tedious forms and stifling protocol, a secret awaited discovery. And Elliot was determined, however overwhelmed, to find out what it was. As the fluorescent lights flickered above, the sock pulsed softly, and Elliot's adventure was just beginning, one mismatched step at a time. Elliot shuffled through the endless maze of filing cabinets that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions, their metal faces reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights overhead. Each drawer bore a label, but not the kind one might expect. No simple red socks or cotton lefts instead. Cryptic acronyms like FBR 14/7 or SCLX23, jumbled together with archaic symbols that looked like they belonged in a magician's spellbook rather than an office filing system. He let out a small sigh, adjusting the ill-fitting intern badge pinned crookedly to his threadbare cardigan. The air smelled faintly of paper dust and stale coffee, a scent that seemed to permeate every corner of the Bureau of Lost Socks. Somewhere, a printer whirred sporadically, spitting out forms no one appeared to read. "You look lost," came a voice so dry it might have been carved from old parchment itself. Elliot turned to see a figure hunched over a pile of socks with such intensity it was as if the very fabric held the secrets of the universe. Clerk number 42 was the epitome of bureaucratic obsession: grey suit, glasses sliding down a sharp nose, and an expression blank enough to rival the blankest bureaucrat Elliot had ever encountered. Yet, his eyes flickered with a frantic energy whenever Elliot dared to glance his way. "It's the filing system," Elliot began hesitantly. "How does it work?" Clerk number 42 sighed, a sound like a deflating balloon. "It works because it must. Every sock, every thread, classified by type, origin, loss, circumstance, and quantum probability. One misfiled sock can cause irreparable chaos." Elliot blinked. "Quantum probability?" "Yes," clerk number 42 whispered conspiratorially, leaning in. "You'd be surprised how many socks are lost, not just in space or time, but in elsewhere." Before Elliot could ask more, a faint twitch caught his attention. His odd sock, the one he'd noticed on the first day. The one that seemed to glow faintly whenever no one was looking, shivered on his desk. The edges fluttered like a trapped butterfly's wings, the fabric shimmering subtly in the sterile light. He reached out cautiously, fingertips brushing the soft cotton. The sock pulsed, as if alive, and a low hum filled the air, barely audible but unmistakable. Elliot swallowed hard. This was no ordinary sock. As if sensing his fascination, Mr. Tiddles, the office cat with a reputation for appearing at the strangest moments, padded over. The tabby brushed against Elliot's legs, purring, before darting suddenly beneath a nearby filing cabinet. Elliot hesitated only a moment before following, his curiosity piqued. There, half hidden beneath dust and neglect, lay a battered folder marked in bold, fading letters, "Confidential Lost Worlds." Elliot's heart hammered. The mundane had cracked, and through it, the extraordinary peeked out. The Bureau's endless paperwork, the baffling filing system, even clerk number 42's obsessive habit saw, suddenly seemed part of a grander, stranger design. He glanced back to his twitching sock. Somewhere beyond the beige walls and buzzing fluorescence, worlds waited. And Elliot, the ink-stained intern with a habit of talking to socks, was about to stumble headfirst into them. "Better start filing then," Elliot muttered to himself with a grin, "because I have a feeling this is just the beginning." The office around him carried on as usual, clacking keyboards, stamping papers. The distant murmur of voices, but for Elliot, The monotony had shifted. Behind the endless stacks of paperwork and bureaucratic mumbo-jumbo, a secret pulsed and twitched, waiting for him to unravel it. And unravel it he would, one odd sock at a time. The fluorescent hum of the Bureau of Lost Socks' endless corridors was a drone Elliot had begun to tune out. Paperwork piled like ancient monuments, filing cabinets stretched to infinity, and the faint but persistent scent of stale coffee swirled through the air. Yet behind the drab monotony, Elliot's curiosity flickered ever brighter, especially after glimpsing the peculiar behavior of that twitching, glowing sock in the depths of the lost and found section. Today, he was to meet Harold, name whispered among the more eccentric corners of the office, a clerk with a reputation as nebulous as the Bureau's labyrinthine filing system. Harold was said to be a bit of a madman, a relic from the Bureau's more adventurous past, and perhaps the only person who truly understood the oddities Elliot had begun to sense. Elliot pushed open the creaking door to Harold's cubicle, a chaotic nest nestled between towering cabinets stuffed with socks of every conceivable kind. The walls were a kaleidoscope of pinned socks, polka-dotted, striped, fuzzy, and frayed, each one seemingly bursting with stories. A battered typewriter sat covered in dust, half buried under stacks of tattered notebooks and loose papers scribbled with indecipherable notes. Harold himself was a whirlwind of disarray. His wild grey hair shot out in every direction, as though charged with static electricity, and his clothes were a patchwork of mismatched fabrics and colors. He looked up from a particularly complicated sketch of a sock-shaped portal and grinned at Elliot, eyes sparkling with both madness and brilliance. "So, you're the new intern," he said, voice gravelly but warm. "I've been expecting you." Elliot smiled nervously, stepping further inside. "I'm Elliot. I've noticed, well, some odd things about the socks here." Harold nodded sagely. "Odd things? That's putting it mildly. You see, young Elliot, these lost socks, they're not just missing accessories or laundry casualties. They're gateways, portals to other dimensions, other realities." Elliot blinked, half expecting a punchline. But Harold's earnest gaze held no mockery, only passion. "Portals," Elliot echoed, a thread of excitement weaving through his usual skepticism. Harold chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "Indeed, the Bureau has buried this knowledge for decades. Too dangerous, they say. Too disorderly, but I've spent years piecing it together, despite the silence, the sneers, and the eventual dismissal." He reached beneath his cluttered desk and pulled out a battered notebook, its cover faded and edges worn. Inside were intricate diagrams, socks twisting into spirals, swirling vortexes, and notes scrawled in a frantic hand. "I was once a portal researcher," Harold confided, voice dropping to a whisper. "I tried to map the dimensions, to understand the connections, but the Bureau doesn't take kindly to chaos. One misstep, one uncontrolled portal, and I was cast out." Elliot leafed through the pages, fascinated despite himself. "So, you think the socks are the keys?" "Exactly. Each lone sock holds a unique signature, a thread to a realm beyond. Some are whimsical, others dangerous, but all are portals. And the Bureau's endless filing, it's a desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable." Harold's eyes gleamed as he pulled out a particular soccer-striped thing, faded but strangely vibrant. "Here, try this. Feel the pulse." Elliot took the sock gingerly, fingers brushing the fabric. A faint tingling crept up his skin, a subtle vibration that thrummed with possibility. The sock seemed almost alive, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. "I can't explain it," Elliot murmured, eyes wide. "You don't have to," Harold said with a grin. You just have to believe. The office carried on around them with indifferent routine. The shuffle of papers, the murmur of distant voices, the faint clatter of keyboards. But in the midst of this humdrum backdrop, a secret universe buzzed quietly in the fabric of the lost socks. For Elliot, this meeting marked a turning point. No longer just a bewildered intern, he now had a guide through the bizarre. A mentor who bridged the gap between mundane paperwork and cosmic absurdity. Together, they would delve deeper into the mysteries lurking in the forgotten corners of the bureau. As Elliot pocketed the sock, Harold's gaze softened. Remember, Elliot, in a place like this, the smallest lost things can change everything. And with that, the game was afoot, an adventure tangled in bureaucracy, whimsy, and the infinite possibilities of a single missing sock. The question lingered in Elliot's mind as he left Harold's cubicle, notebook clutched in hand. If lost socks were gateways, what wonders and dangers waited on the other side? Elliot had never imagined that a single sock could change everything. The dull thrum of the bureau's endless filing cabinets and the ceaseless drone of typewriters and printers had been his world for barely a week. But already the monotony threatened to swallow him whole. Yet here he was, standing in a poorly lit storage room, clutching a sock that no one else seemed to notice, a sock that twitched and shimmered faintly as if alive. Harold, the eccentric clerk with wild grey hair and an aura of distracted brilliance, hovered nearby, eyes gleaming with a mixture of excitement and caution. "This one," he whispered, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead, "is not just lost, it's a gateway." Elliot blinked, the phrase sounding absurd even as it planted a seed of possibility in his mind. A gateway to what? Harold grinned, revealing a row of slightly crooked teeth. Other worlds, other dimensions. Every lost sock in here. It's a door, waiting for someone curious enough to open it. The air in the storage room felt charged, electric with anticipation. Elliot's fingers trembled as he held the peculiar sock closer. It pulsed gently, a heartbeat of light flickering through its fabric. Around them, the towering filing cabinets seemed to lean in, as if eavesdropping on the moment. "Are you sure this is safe?" Elliot asked, a trace of hesitation in his voice. "Safe?" Harold chuckled. "No, but safe is boring." With a deep breath, Elliot followed Harold's instructions. Focus on the sock's light, let it guide your hand, trust in the impossible. The sock began to swirl, colors blending and twisting like the brush strokes of an abstract painting come to life. The boundaries between fabric and air blurred, and suddenly an opening appeared, a shimmering portal, humming softly with otherworldly energy. Elliot's heart pounded as he took a tentative step forward. The world around him dissolved into a kaleidoscope of hues and sensations. Cold air brushed his skin, mingled with the scent of unfamiliar flowers and something faintly metallic. When his feet touched solid ground again, he found himself somewhere utterly unlike the grey monotony of the bureau. Before him stretched a landscape that defied logic and expectation. Trees with translucent leaves hummed a gentle tune, their branches swaying despite the absence of wind. The sky overhead was a canvas of pastel blues and pinks, shifting subtly like a living watercolor. Floating islands drifted lazily above the ground, casting soft shadows on the iridescent grass below. Elliot's mouth fell open in both disbelief and delight. This is incredible," he murmured, taking a cautious step forward. Every sense was alive, the colors vibrant, the sounds melodic and strange, the air tingling with possibility. Behind him, the sock portal shimmered faintly, a tether back to the world he had left. Yet the pull of this strange, whimsical reality was irresistible. Back at the bureau, Ms. Prudence Spindle stood in her usual sharp suit, clipboard clutched tightly in one hand. Her gaze was fixed on the flickering monitor that tracked Elliot's movements or, rather, his sudden absence, her lips pressed into a thin line, a mixture of disapproval and concern knitting her brows. Disruptions, she muttered under her breath. Unacceptable. The hum of the office carried on, indifferent to the cosmic breach slowly unfolding within its walls. Meanwhile, Elliot wandered deeper into the surreal landscape, every step revealing new wonders, glowing flowers that whispered secrets when touched, rivers that sang in harmonies, and creatures that seemed part dream, part reality. His mind raced with questions and exhilaration. What other worlds lay waiting within the Bureau's endless collection of lost socks? What did this mean for the office, for the universe? As he explored, Elliot felt a strange kinship with this realm, a place where whimsy trumped logic, and where the mundane rules of his old world held no sway. And yet, a part of him knew he couldn't stay forever. The Bureau needed answers, and he was the only one who had glimpsed the truth. The sock in his pocket twitched softly, a reminder that the path back was open. But the journey ahead promised adventures, challenges, and revelations that would reshape everything he thought he knew about lost socks, bureaucracy, and the nature of reality itself. Elliot took a deep breath, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Let's see where this rabbit hole goes," he whispered, stepping forward into the unknown. And somewhere, beyond the walls of the Bureau, Ms. Spindle's disapproving glare burned colder than ever, heralding the storm that was to come. The hum of the fluorescent lights buzzed relentlessly overhead, a ceaseless drone that buzzed through the sterile halls of the Bureau of Lost Socks. It was a sound that Elliot had quickly come to associate with monotony, a soundtrack for the endless paperwork and the baffling rituals of an office that seemed to exist outside of time itself. But today, the oppressive quiet was broken, and Elliot found himself standing before the formidable figure of Ms. Prudence Spindle. She was every bit as sharp as the rumors had suggested, her impeccably tailored suit a dark slash against the beige monotony of the office walls. Her clipboard was clutched like a shield or perhaps a weapon, and her glare was the kind of look that could wilt a filing cabinet. Elliot, with his disheveled hair and ink-stained fingers, felt suddenly very small. "Mr. Elliot," she began, voice clipped and cold as the winter air outside the office windows. "I have been reviewing your recent activities, and I must say, your curiosity is most unwise." Elliot swallowed, glancing down at the peculiar sock he had tucked under his arm. The odd sock twitched faintly, its pale glow casting eerie shadows across the polished surface of Spindle's desk. "I am only trying to understand," Elliot managed, his voice a mix of defiance and uncertainty. "There's something about these lost socks. They're not just lost, they're gateways." Ms. Spindle's eyes narrowed. "Gateways are dangerous. Unregulated portals could unravel the delicate balance we maintain here. The Bureau exists to contain chaos, Mr. Elliot, not to invite it in." The room felt suddenly colder, the weight of her words settling heavily on Elliot's shoulders. He knew the stories. There had been incidents before, minor portals flaring unexpectedly, causing temporary disruptions. Ms. Spindle had been at the center of at least one such debacle, a failure she carried like a scar beneath her rigid exterior. "If you continue this reckless behavior," she warned, tapping her clipboard with a sharp fingernail, "I will have no choice but to recommend your immediate expulsion. The Bureau cannot permit such insubordination." Elliot nodded slowly, the threat sinking in like a stone. Yet beneath the fear was a flicker of something else: determination, curiosity, a stubborn refusal to be silenced. As Ms. Spindle turned on her heel and strode away, the door clicked shut behind her, leaving Elliot alone with the low murmur of the office. It was then that Mina appeared, her neat bun bobbing as she approached, a coffee mug in hand. "Spindle's not messing around," Mina said, voice dry but tinged with concern. "You've got her full attention now." Elliot managed a wry smile. "She's not exactly the welcoming committee." Mina sipped her coffee, eyes scanning the cluttered desks around them. "Look, I'm not wild about all this sock portal nonsense, but I've seen stranger things in this place. Just be careful. Bureaucracy here has teeth, and Spindle's got the biggest bite." Her words were a bomb and a warning. Elliot felt the fragile thread of alliance forming between them, a small beacon of hope in the drab corridors of control. He glanced down at his mismatched socks, one red with faint polka dots, the other a faded navy blue. How fitting, he thought, that his socks should reflect his own divided self, torn between order and the chaotic magic beckoning just beyond the mundane. The office window framed the grey cityscape beyond, a world of rigid structures and predictable routines. Yet in his hands lay the promise of something more. The question was whether he dared to grasp it. With a deep breath, Elliot pocketed the glowing sock, the faint twitching a reminder that curiosity was no longer a quiet companion but a roaring fire. The bureau might be a fortress of paperwork and regulation, but somewhere within its labyrinthine halls, the extraordinary was waiting if only he had the courage to seek it. And so, with the weight of Spindle's warning heavy on his mind and Mina's guarded support at his side, Elliot stepped back into the fray. The game had changed, and the stakes were higher than ever. The Bureau of Lost Socks, with all its absurdity and inertia, was about to reveal just how strange and dangerous the mundane could be. As the office clock ticked relentlessly onward, Elliot whispered to the odd sock in his pocket, "Let's see what you really are." And somewhere, in the depths of the filing cabinets and forgotten corners, a faint shimmer of possibility stirred. The fluorescent hum of the bureau's endless rows of filing cabinets had never sounded so dull to Elliot as it did that morning. Yet, beneath that monotony lay an undeniable pulsar heartbeat of absurdity that had begun to thrum louder with every sock portal he dared to explore. He held the peculiar striped sock in his hands, its fibers alive with a faint glow and an almost imperceptible twitching, as if eager to lead him somewhere new. Taking a breath which felt far too deliberate, in the sterile air Elliot slid the sock over his hand and felt a slight tug, like the fabric was pulling him forward. The world around him blurred, colors bleeding and twisting until he stumbled onto solid ground in a place that defied all expectations. Gravity here was a whimsical artist, bending and swaying, causing leaves to float upward and stones to drift lazily sideways. The sky was not a sky but a canvas of soft humming colors that shifted with each blink, bathing the landscape in surreal light. Elliot's heart raced with a cocktail of excitement and bewilderment. This was no mundane office drudgery. This was the very essence of the Bureau's secret. He stumbled forward, eyes wide, as the laws of physics seemed to dance to a tune only this dimension could hear. Back in the grey monotony of the Bureau, Mr. Tiddles, the office cat, whose aloofness was legendary, suddenly sprang into motion. His green eyes flickered with something almost like purpose as he darted toward one of the endless filing cabinets. Elliot barely caught the sight before the cat pawed at a hidden latch near the base. With a soft click, a panel slid open, revealing a dimly glowing portal beneath the floor tiles, new gateway waiting silently beneath the linoleum. "That cat," Mina muttered, adjusting her glasses as she peered down the opening. always showing up at the right moment. Harold chuckled, his wild grey hair bouncing as he leaned in. Mr. Tiddles has a knack for sniffing out the weirdest socks. Gathered around a cluttered desk, the trio unfolded worn maps covered in cryptic symbols and sock sketches. Each mark represented a portal, a doorway to a world stranger than the last. Elliot traced a finger over a polka-dotted sock symbol, shuddering with anticipation. "This one," Harold whispered, "is a place where time doesn't just flow, it folds, unfolds, and sometimes even runs backwards." Elliot swallowed hard, but nodded. The allure of discovery outweighed the gnawing fear of losing control. He slipped the polka-dotted sock over his hand and was immediately swept away. The sensation was dizzying. Around him, the world blurred and shifted, moments flickering like broken film reels. People passed by in reverse, words unspoken slipped back into silence, and Elliot felt his own footsteps rewind with a strange exhilaration. Disoriented but exhilarated, he navigated this topsy-turvy landscape, marveling at the oddity of it all. Here, the Bureau's rigid rules seemed laughably out of place. Returning each time to the dull office, Elliot found the contrast ever sharper. The cosmic oddity of these dimensions versus the drab, grey, bureaucratic machine. Yet, with each journey, he felt more certain that the Bureau was not merely an office, but a crossroads of infinite possibilities. Mina, pragmatic as ever, sighed one afternoon amidst the chaos. "You do realize this won't stay a secret forever, right? Ms. Spindle's patience is already wearing thin." Elliot smiled wryly, watching Mr. Tiddles curl up atop a pile of unfiled socks. "Let her try. We're only just beginning to understand what's really here." The office cat blinked slowly, as if in agreement. As the day drew on, Elliot's adventures through the sock portals continued, each more surreal and whimsical than the last. With every step, the divide between order and chaos blurred, and the Bureau hummed quietly beneath it all, a strange nexus of endless paperwork and boundless cosmic wonder. And somewhere, lurking in the shadows of that endless bureaucracy, the wheels of intrigue and opposition began to turn faster than ever before. But for now, Elliot was content to explore, to embrace the absurdity, and to marvel at the worlds hidden in the simplest of lost socks. The adventure was far from over. The fluorescent lights flickered sporadically above the cramped archive room where Elliot crouched beside piles of dusty files. The stale air hung thick with the musk of long-forgotten paper and the faint metallic tang of aged filing cabinets. Across the narrow aisle, Harold's wild grey hair bobbed as he flipped through a brittle folder, his muttered commentary barely audible over the incessant hum. "Here," Harold whispered, eyes gleaming with a mixture of excitement and dread. "This is what I was telling you about. The faction's been hiding these memos for years, carefully masked in bureaucratic jargon. But the intent is clear. Weaponize the portals. Control alternate dimensions like chess pieces." Elliot's fingers trembled slightly as he scanned the documents. The language was convoluted, layered with euphemisms and red tape, but the meaning was unmistakable. Senior clerks, those who had long feasted on the stability of the Bureau's monotonous order, were conspiring, not just to manage lost socks anymore, but to wield the portals themselves as instruments of power. Why would they want to do that? Elliot asked, voice hushed but urgent. Harold leaned closer, eyes darting nervously to the dim hallway outside. Control breeds safety, or so they tell themselves, but it's fear. Fear that chaos will swallow everything. They think by controlling the portals, they control reality and, by extension, the Bureau. The weight of the revelation settled heavily between them. The absurdity of the Bureau of Lost Socks suddenly felt perilously real. These weren't just misplaced garments. They were gateways that some were willing to exploit for dominion. Later, in the shadowed corridors of the bureau, Elliot moved with cautious steps. His mind replayed the fragments of overheard conversations from clandestine meetings he had stumbled upon. Senior clerks, dressed in their sharp suits, spoke in hushed tones about strategies and contingencies. The words, weaponize, containment breach, and dimensional manipulation floated ominously in the stale air. Hiding behind a towering filing cabinet, Elliot's heart hammered in his chest. The sterile scent of the office mixed strangely with the faint, almost electric pulse emanating from the peculiar socks stored nearby. He felt the absurdity of the situation prickling at his nerves. The sheer surrealism of a bureaucratic office housing the fate of countless realities. Returning to a safer space, Harold greeted him with a grave expression. "You must understand, Elliot, this isn't just a power grab. The portals are unstable. Any misuse could cascade into chaos across dimensions. I've seen what happens when rules are broken, when control is lost." Harold's voice wavered as he recounted a past incident, a minor portal breach that once spiraled beyond containment. An episode that had haunted the Bureau's history and shaped Ms. Prudence Spindle's ironclad resolve. Elliot looked at his mentor, the gravity of their mission crystallizing. "We have to stop them," he said, the resolve hardening in his voice, "before it's too late." In the dim light of his cramped workspace, Elliot stared at the glowing sock that had first set this journey in motion. Its colors swirled with an otherworldly shimmer, the portal within flickering like a candle struggling against a draft. The weight of responsibility settled upon him. The Bureau, with its endless paperwork and absurd rituals, had become something far more significant, the battleground between order and cosmic chaos. The rogue factions' schemes had been uncovered, but the real battle was only beginning. Elliot knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, intrigue, and moments so absurd they bordered on the surreal. Yet beneath it all was a strange magic, a whimsical possibility that even the most mundane corners of existence could hold secrets vast and profound. As the portal pulsed softly, Elliot clenched his fists. The Bureau was no longer just a place of lost socks, it was a crucible of realities. And he, the once overwhelmed intern, was poised to become its reluctant champion. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sterile glow that seemed to mock the very idea of warmth or comfort. In the cramped break room of the Bureau of Lost Socks, Elliot shuffled a stack of yellowed forms nervously, glancing nervously over his shoulder. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and forgotten deadlines. Around the rickety table, Harold's wild grey hair seemed to bristle with static, his mismatched clothes hanging off his lanky frame like a patchwork quilt stitched together by chaos itself. Mina sat opposite, her neat bun tightly wound and glasses perched with clinical precision on her nose. A half-empty coffee mug clutched like a shield. "We can't keep doing this blindly," Mina muttered, voice low but firm. "The rogue faction isn't just a nuisance anymore. They're watching, waiting for a slip-up." Elliot nodded, fingers twitching ink stains on the forms. "I know, but if we don't act, they'll weaponize those portals, and who knows what kind of mess that'll unleash." Harold leaned forward, eyes gleaming with a mix of excitement and exhaustion. "The key is subtlety. We operate under the radar, use the bureaucracy against itself. There's enough red tape here to choke a dragon." The three formed an unlikely trinity: Elliot, the curious intern with a penchant for odd socks and witty quips; Harold, the eccentric former researcher whose mind was a labyrinth of half-baked theories and forgotten experiments; and Mina, the pragmatic realist whose fierce loyalty was tempered by a healthy dose of skepticism. Their first challenge was surveillance. Ms. Prudence Spindle's faction had tightened their grip, installing new monitoring protocols and increasing patrols through the labyrinthine filing cabinets. Elliot had learned to read the patterns of the office, the faint shuffling of papers signaling a clerk's approach, the abrupt silence that meant a camera was sweeping nearby. He moved like a shadow, slipping between aisles and ducking behind towering stacks of paperwork. "Watch your step," Harold whispered one afternoon as they navigated the maze. "Clerk number 42 is on high alert. He's obsessively filing socks in a new, convoluted system. One wrong move, and we're toast." Elliot smirked despite the tension. If socks could talk, I'm sure clerk number 42's filing system would be the punchline of a very dry joke. Mina shot him a look that was half amused, half exasperated. "Just keep moving." The office cat, Mr. Tiddles, proved an unexpected ally. With sleek grey fur and inscrutable green eyes, he prowled the corridors like a silent sentinel. Elliot had noticed the cat's uncanny ability to appear precisely where clues were hidden. One afternoon, as Elliot crouched by a filing cabinet, Mr. Tiddles leaped onto the cluttered desk, scattering papers in a small tempest of chaos. "Mr. Tiddles, you scoundrel," Elliot murmured, eyes following the cat's gaze to a barely noticeable seam in the cabinet's baseboard. Investigating, he discovered a hidden compartment containing a set of cryptic memos outlining the rogue faction's plans. Back in the break room, the mood was tense as Mina confronted Elliot. "This alliance, it's dangerous. We're playing with fire, and Ms. Spindle is the one holding the matches. Are you sure we're ready for this?" Elliot met her gaze, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "We don't have a choice anymore. The Bureau's secret is too important to lose, even if it means bending the rules a little." Harold nodded sagely. Chaos and order, two sides of the same sock, eh? Their whispered plans grew bolder as days passed. They orchestrated subtle diversions, planted false leads, and gathered intelligence. Each action a thread in a delicate web designed to ensnare the rogue faction without alerting Ms. Spindle's ever-watchful eye. But the office was a living organism of absurdity and inertia. At every turn, they faced not only human foes, but the maddening labyrinth of bureaucracy itself, a maze of forms, memos, and nonsensical regulations that threatened to grind their efforts to a halt. Late one evening, as Elliot filed a report with meticulous care, a sudden clatter echoed through the silent office. Mr. Tiddles darted past, eyes wild, leading Elliot to a hidden sock drawer ajar and papers strewn about. The rogue faction had left a message, a warning that their game was far from over. Elliot's heart pounded, but a grin tugged at the corners of his mouth. "Game on," he whispered, the absurdity of their situation hanging in the air like the faint scent of lost socks. As the chapter closed, the trio sat once more in the break room, their alliance forged in whispered secrets and shared risks. The Bureau of Lost Socks remained a place of endless paperwork and quiet magic. But now it was also a battleground where wit and will clashed against the relentless tide of order and chaos. And Elliot, the mismatched sock-wearing intern with ink-stained fingers and a restless mind, was ready to lead the charge. The fluorescent lights above flickered with a rhythm that felt vaguely conspiratorial, or perhaps just old. As Elliot stepped cautiously between the towering rows of filing cabinets, the claustrophobic scent of aged paper and dust wrapped around him like an old, musty blanket. Behind him, Harold shuffled along, muttering softly about misplaced files and the curious properties of certain sock fibers. while Mina kept a steady hand on her ever-present coffee mug, her eyes sharp and scanning their surroundings with pragmatic vigilance. "I still can't believe they built this place without a fire escape," Elliot whispered, partly to himself, partly to his companions. "It's like some kind of bureaucratic labyrinth designed to trap souls." Harold chuckled, his wild grey hair bouncing. "Ah, but the labyrinth is more than that. Legend has it this maze isn't just storage, it's a nexus, the heart of the Bureau's secret operations, a place where portals converge." Mina raised an eyebrow. Legend, or a convenient excuse for all the lost paperwork? Elliot's gaze flicked to a cabinet that seemed to hum faintly, as if alive. His peculiar sock, safely tucked in his pocket, twitched in response. It was as if the socks themselves were whispering secrets to him, tugging him deeper into the maze. As they ventured further, the cabinets seemed to multiply endlessly, their metal surfaces cold and indifferent. The hum of the building's ventilation was the only soundtrack, punctuated by the occasional creak of settling metal and the distant clatter of files. Suddenly, from behind a particularly tall stack of dusty folders, a figure emerged with the stealth of a shadow and the intensity of a hawk. Clerk number 42, draped in a nondescript grey suit that somehow made him blend perfectly into the bureaucratic backdrop, adjusted his glasses with a sharp gesture. "Ah, you're here," he said, voice dry as old parchment. "Lost, undoubtedly. This section is where the real work happens. The filing is complex, but necessary. Every sock categorized by fiber type, dimensional origin," and Elliot held up a hand, trying to suppress a smile. "We're not lost, just exploring." Clerk number 42's eyes narrowed, and he launched into a rapid-fire explanation of his obsessive filing system, complete with acronyms and codes that would make a quantum physicist weep. His passion was unmistakable, but it was tinged with a kind of madness, the kind bred from years of filing socks no one would ever see again. Mina exchanged a glance with Elliot and Harold, silently communicating the shared thought: this man was a living embodiment of the Bureau's absurdity. Their encounter was abruptly interrupted by a soft padding sound. Mr. Tiddles, the office cat with sleek black fur and a distinctive white patch shaped like a sock on his chest, appeared at their feet. He weaved through their legs and paused at an unusually nondescript cabinet, pawing at a hidden latch. Elliot knelt down, eyes wide. "Mr. Tiddles, what have you found?" With a faint click, the cabinet door slid open, revealing a shimmering curtain of lighter portal. The air around it buzzed with a strange energy, a whisper of unspoken possibilities. "So this is the nexus," Harold breathed. "The crossroads of all sock portals." Mina took a cautious step forward, the pragmatic part of her mind battling the surreal reality before her. "We need to be careful," she said. "If the rogue faction discovers we found this, it could mean trouble." Elliot nodded, feeling the weight of their mission settle on his shoulders. "Then we proceed with caution and determination." Together, they stepped through the portal, leaving behind the endless maze of filing cabinets for a realm where the absurdity of lost socks took on cosmic significance. The journey was just beginning, and every step forward tangled them deeper in the Bureau's strange, bureaucratic magic. But somewhere in the shadows of the maze, clerk number 42 watched, his fingers twitching with the desire to maintain order in a world that was rapidly slipping beyond his control. And the filing cabinet labyrinth waited, silent and infinite, a testament to the absurdity of bureaucracy and the strange allure of the lost and forgotten. Mina tapped her pen against the endless stack of forms before her, the rhythmic sound echoing softly in the cavernous filing room. Around her, The Bureau of Lost Socks stretched out like an immense mechanical beast, its endless filing cabinets and humming fluorescent lights forming a labyrinthine maze that seemed to swallow time whole. She glanced up briefly, eyes scanning the rows of drawers, each labeled with cryptic codes and faded dates, a testament to the office's obsession with order and control. Despite her outward calm and practiced efficiency, Mina felt a knot of unease tightening in her stomach. The recent disruptions, strange discoveries, the whispered rumors of sock portals to alternate dimensions had unsettled the very foundation of the bureau she had come to rely on. She prided herself on being pragmatic, a steadfast guardian of the office's routines and rules. Yet now, confronted with the impossible, she wrestled with a gnawing doubt. Could she truly keep faith in the monotony she cherished when the world around her was unraveling? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden appearance of Elliot, who approached her desk with his usual disheveled enthusiasm. His mismatched socks peeked beneath his worn trousers, and his ink-stained fingers twitched nervously as he spoke. "Mina," he began, voiced low but urgent, "you've got to see this. Another sock portal, this one's like nothing we've seen before. It's incredible." Mina raised an eyebrow, masking her skepticism with a practiced smile. Incredible or dangerous? You know how Ms. Spindle feels about these disruptions. She won't tolerate any nonsense that threatens the Bureau's order. Elliot shrugged, a glimmer of mischief in his eyes. Since when did order stop us from discovering something extraordinary? The tension between them was palpable, a clash of ideals embodied in two co-workers caught in a surreal storm. Mina sipped her coffee, its bitter warmth grounding her amid the whirlwind of uncertainty. Later that day, Harold burst into their cramped break room, papers fluttering from his hands like startled birds. His wild grey hair seemed to crackle with the energy of his latest revelations. "You won't believe what it found," he exclaimed, eyes wide with excitement. "The portals aren't random, they follow patterns, rules even. We can predict them, maybe even control them." Mina exchanged a wary glance with Elliot, who nodded eagerly. The promise of knowledge was intoxicating, but Mina's practical mind warned her of the dangers. As days passed, Mina found herself torn between her ingrained loyalty to the Bureau's order and the magnetic pull of the unknown. She spent long nights poring over documents, the dim glow of her desk lamp casting shadows that seemed to dance with the flickering light from a nearby sock portal. Mr. Tiddles, the office cat, often kept her company, his lazy purrs a soothing balm to her restless thoughts. One evening, as the office settled into an uneasy quiet, Mina finally voiced the question that had haunted her. "Elliot, if what you say is true, if these portals really exist, what does that mean for us? For the Bureau, for everything we've built here?" Elliot smiled softly, a mixture of hope and determination shining through his tired eyes. "It means the Bureau is more than just paperwork and protocols. It's a gateway to something bigger, something magical. And maybe, just maybe, we have a chance to make a difference." Mina hesitated, then nodded slowly. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with risks and challenges, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of belief. The mundane and the marvelous were entwined, and she was ready to walk the line between them. As the chapter closed, Mina stood by the window overlooking the endless rows of filing cabinets, the hum of the Bureau now a symphony of possibility rather than monotony. Somewhere within those cabinets, among the lost socks and forgotten files, lay the future uncertain, absurd, and undeniably wondrous. With a decisive sip of coffee, she turned back to her desk, ready to face whatever came next. The days that followed brought a shift in the office's atmosphere. Mina found herself increasingly involved in Elliot's investigations, her pragmatic nature providing a grounding counterbalance to his boundless curiosity. Though skepticism still flickered beneath her expressions, she began to embrace the strange new reality that the Bureau held secrets far beyond mere lost socks. She and Elliot shared hushed conversations in shadowed corners, their voices low amidst the clatter of typing and the rustle of paperwork. Mina questioned every leap of faith, yet each answer only deepened the mystery and her reluctant trust. Ms. Prudence, Spindle's looming presence was a constant reminder of the fragile balance they sought to maintain. Mina felt the pressure of her gaze, sharp and unyielding, as if the very air tightened around her whenever the bureau chief was near. One late afternoon, Mina caught sight of Ms. Spindle speaking sternly with a group of senior clerks, their expressions grave and voices hushed. The threat of the rogue faction's ambitions shadowed every meeting, a reminder that order was always on the brink of collapse. Through it all, Mina's allegiance grew more complex. She was no longer just a protector of paperwork and procedure. She had become a reluctant guardian of something far more extraordinary. The mundane had been pierced, and the Bureau's endless corridors now echoed with the whispers of endless possibilities. As the chapter drew to a close, Mina stood beside Elliot at the threshold of another portal, the swirling colors reflecting in her glasses. She hesitated, then stepped forward, ready to face the absurd and wondrous unknown alongside her newfound allies. The Bureau of Lost Socks, with its endless paperwork and peculiar magic, was awakening. And so was Mina. The fluorescent lights above flickered uncertainly, casting long shadows among the towering piles of socks that crowded the storage room like forgotten relics of 1,000 lost worlds. Elliot shifted uneasily on his feet, the faint scent of aging cotton and stale paper filling the cramped space. Across from him, Harold sat hunched over a battered notebook, his wild grey hair a chaotic halo illuminated by the pale light. His fingers trembled slightly as he traced the faded ink of diagrams and hastily scrawled notes. "You want to know the truth, Elliot," Harold began, voice low and ragged. "The full story behind these portals and why I fell from grace. It's not a tale for the faint-hearted." He paused, eyes glinting with a mixture of regret and determination. "But if anyone can make it right, it's you." Elliot leaned in closer, the odd sock in his pocket twitching faintly as if eager to hear the confession. Mina stood just outside the doorway, arms crossed, her usual pragmatic expression softened by the weight of the moment. The quiet hum of the Bureau's fluorescent lights seemed to fade, leaving only the urgency of Harold's words. "Years ago," Harold continued, "I was part of a research team investigating the potential of lost socks as dimensional gateways. Our aim was noble: to understand, to explore, perhaps even to harness these portals for the greater good. But ambition, as it often does, outpaced caution." He flipped the notebook open, revealing pages filled with meticulous notes and sketches of sock patterns, energy readings, and field reports. "We believed we could control the portals, stabilize them. But one experiment went catastrophically wrong. A sock we dubbed the Crimson Thread. It opened a rift to unstable, spilling chaotic energies into our world. It was a disaster. Lives were endangered, realities threatened." Mina's lips tightened. "That's why you were demoted, reduced to filing socks for the Bureau." Her voice was sharp but carried a trace of sympathy. Harold nodded. "Exactly. I carried the blame. But the truth is, the portals are far more unpredictable than we imagined. The Bureau tried to cover it up, bury that failure deep beneath endless paperwork and silence. But the rogue faction, they don't care about consequences. They want to weaponize these portals, to bend realities to bureaucratic will. Elliot felt the odd sock in his pocket pulse, a faint warmth spreading through his fingers. What can we do? How do we stop them? From beneath the cluttered desk, Harold produced a small, intricately embroidered sock. It shimmered faintly, the fabric alive with a subtle, otherworldly glow. "This," he said reverently, "is a key. Not just a portal, but a delicate balance of energies. Navigating these dimensions requires precision and respect. If we understand the patterns, the rules, maybe we can outmaneuver the faction's reckless plans." Elliot reached out, fingers brushing the sock's strange surface. A surge of possibilities flashed before his eyes, worlds of whimsy and chaos. Bureaucratic absurdities heightened to cosmic scales, and the fragile thread holding it all together. The responsibility was enormous. "You're not alone," Harold said, voice steadying. "Mina's by your side, and I'll guide you as best I can. But you're the one who's going to lead this charge." Mina stepped fully into the room, placing a reassuring hand on Elliot's shoulder. "We've seen too much to turn back now. Let's get to work." The trio gathered around the cluttered desk, poring over Harold's notes and diagrams, the weight of history and hope intertwined in the faded pages, as the office noises of distant typing and rustling papers faded into a determined silence. Elliot's heart quickened with resolve. The game had changed, the stakes higher than ever. Outside the storage room, the corridors of the bureau hummed with indifferent bureaucracy, unaware that within these walls, a fragile alliance was forging a new path, one that might just save their reality from unraveling. As the chapter closed, Elliot glanced once more at the glowing sock in his hand, the pulse steady and sure. The journey from intern to savior was only beginning, and the absurd dance of socks and dimensions awaited its next act. The dim light of the bureau's endless corridors flickered uncertainly as Elliot followed Mr. Tiddles, the office cat who had taken an uncharacteristically insistent interest in his recent escapades. The tabby's tail flicked with purpose, weaving through towering, labyrinthine filing cabinets that seemed to stretch endlessly upwards, their metal faces cold and indifferent in the fluorescent glow. The hum of the overhead lights mingled with the soft padding of paws on the linoleum floor, a soundtrack that was at once mundane and oddly comforting. Elliot was no stranger to the absurdity of his workplace, but this nocturnal expedition felt different. The cat's eyes glinted like tiny orbs of conspiracy, and though Elliot didn't understand the feline's motives, he trusted Mr. Tiddles more than most of his human colleagues. "All right, lead the way," he whispered, as if the filing cabinets themselves might eavesdrop. The passageways between cabinets narrowed until Elliot had to turn sideways, his ink-stained fingers brushing against the dusty metal. The stale scent of forgotten paperwork filled the air, punctuated by the occasional squeak of a filing drawer being tugged open or shut somewhere in the distance. Mr. Tiddles paused, his whiskers twitching, before darting towards a particular cabinet that looked more neglected than the rest, its surface mottled with scratches and smudges. Elliot crouched and pulled open the drawer. A cloud of dust rose, shimmering in the pale light. Inside lay a jumble of yellowed dossiers, faded memos, and cryptic notes scrawled in various handwritings, an archive of secrets lost to time and bureaucracy. His heart quickened. Could this be the key to understanding the rogue faction that Harold had warned him about? Carefully, Elliot sifted through the papers, every rustle echoing in the quiet corridor. A slip of parchment caught his Aja report detailing unauthorized experiments with sock portals, accompanied by a list of names that matched the senior clerks rumored to be involved in the conspiracy. The plans were chilling in their ambition, weaponizing the portals to manipulate alternate realities for power and control. A sudden creak of footsteps sent a jolt through Elliot's spine. He glanced up to find Mina approaching, coffee mug in hand, her pragmatic face etched with concern. "You really think there's something here?" she whispered, glancing nervously around. "Mr. Tiddles led me here," Elliot said, holding up the document. "And it's worse than we feared." Mina's skepticism cracked just enough to let a flicker of belief slip through. Together, they gathered the folders, their whispers low and urgent as they retreated to a shadowed alcove behind a filing cabinet. The scent of old paper mixed with the faint aroma of coffee and the faintest hint of the cat's musk. As they pored over the evidence, the office seemed to hold its breath. The distant footsteps of patrolling clerks echoed like a ticking clock, a reminder that discovery could lead to disaster. Yet, in that moment, camaraderie and resolve blossomed amidst the absurdity of their surroundings. The mundane had become magical, the bureaucratic transformed into a battleground for the fate of countless worlds. Elliot glanced at Mr. Tiddles, who was perched serenely on a dusty shelf, eyes gleaming with inscrutable wisdom. The cat had chosen his moment to intervene, and Elliot knew the path ahead would be fraught with peril, but also possibility. "We have to act," Elliot said softly, "before they turn these portals into weapons of chaos." Mina nodded, her usual pragmatism tempered by a newfound determination. "Then let's make sure they don't get the chance." Outside, the bureau's fluorescent lights continued their indifferent flicker, and the endless hum of paperwork churned on. But within the shadows, a secret alliance was forming, one that would challenge the very fabric of order and chaos. Guided by a cat with a penchant for mischief and a young intern with a wild idea. And somewhere, in the depths of the filing cabinets, the lost socks waited, their mysteries far from exhausted. The adventure was just beginning. The hum of the fluorescent lights overhead was a steady drone in the otherwise silent archive room. Ms. Prudence Spindle sat alone at a narrow metal table, her sharp suit a stark contrast against the faded beige filing cabinets that towered around her like silent sentinels. The flickering lights cast restless shadows over her face, revealing a rare crack in the armor of her usual disapproving glare, a flicker of worry, of something more vulnerable. Before her lay a stack of reports, yellowed and dog-eared, each detailing the chaotic events of a portal incident that had happened years ago, before most of the current clerks had even started their internships. The file was marked with bureaucratic efficiency, incident number 47, uncontrolled portal breach Spindle, P, her own initials, a reminder of a day she would rather forget but could never quite erase. The room seemed to close in, the weight of past mistakes pressing down like the dense, dusty air around her. She traced a finger over the faded photographs clipped to the top of the file, images of swirling sock portals, flickering with otherworldly colors, and the panicked faces of clerks fleeing the scene. At the center of it all was a younger version of herself, eyes wide with a mixture of determination and fear. The memory unfolded like a film reel, transporting her back to a time when the bureau was smaller, less organized, and infinitely more chaotic. The office had been bustling with a nervous energy, a stark contrast to the cold order she now enforced. That day had started like any other, with a mountain of mismatched socks to sort and files to fill. But in a cluttered corner of the office, a peculiar sock had begun to twitch, first subtly, then with increasing urgency. Young Prudence Spindle, fresh-faced and eager to prove herself, had been tasked with monitoring the sock portals. She had been warned repeatedly about the dangers of uncontrolled dimensions, but nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. The sock pulsed, then erupted into a swirling portal, sucking in papers, staplers, and even a startled clerk's hat, before stabilizing into a shimmering gateway to an unknown dimension. The office descended into chaos. Clerks shouted instructions, filing cabinets rattled as if alive, and the air filled with an electric charge that made hairs stand on end. Prudence, heart pounding, tried desperately to follow protocol, a protocol that seemed woefully inadequate in the face of such absurdity. She barked orders, attempted to seal the portal, but her efforts were frantic and ineffective. Her failure was inevitable. The portal expanded beyond control, and it was only through the combined efforts of several senior clerks that the breach was eventually contained. But not before significant disruption and damage to the office. The aftermath was a mess: lost files, confused clerks, and a bureau chastened by the reminder that their orderly world was fragile indeed. In the days that followed, Prudence found herself at the center of a storm. Her superiors were unforgiving, their reprimands sharp and unyielding. This kind of negligence could have destroyed the entire bureau, one had said, his voice cold as the winter wind outside the office windows. The sting of humiliation burned deep, but it was tempered by a burgeoning resolve. She would never let such chaos happen again. That incident, forever etched in her memory and the bureau's records, became the crucible that forged the Ms. Spindle known today, a woman who wielded rules like armor, who trusted order above all else, and who viewed any hint of disorder, especially the unpredictable sock portals, as a threat that must be suppressed at all costs. Back in the present, Ms. Spindle folded the file with meticulous care, her hands steady despite the tumult of emotions beneath her composed exterior. She glanced toward the window, where rain traced lazy rivers down the glass, distorting the view of the endless rows of filing cabinets beyond. For a moment, the harsh lines of her face softened, revealing a flicker of something almost like regret. The fear of chaos was not born of mere bureaucracy, but from a deeply personal failure, one that had shaped her entire career and worldview. It was this fear that fueled her opposition to Elliot, whose reckless curiosity threatened to unravel the delicate balance she fought so hard to maintain. Yet, beneath the surface, a question gnawed at her: was order truly worth sacrificing the magic, the wonder that those lost socks represented? Could there be a way to embrace the chaos without letting it consume everything? As the rain pattered softly against the window pane, Ms. Spindle's gaze hardened once more. The answers were not hers to give, at least, not yet. For now, she would continue her vigilant watch over the bureau, guarding its secrets and enforcing its rules, even as the world around her shifted in ways she could barely comprehend. The past was a heavy burden, but it was also a guide, and Prudence Spindle was nothing if not a creature of rules and resolve, bound to protect the fragile order of the bureau, no matter what the cost. Outside, a lone sock twitched faintly in its drawer, a subtle reminder that the story was far from over, and that the boundary between order and chaos was thinner than anyone dared admit. The game was changing, and Ms. Spindle would have to decide where she truly stood before the next move was made. The corridors of the Bureau of Lost Socks had a way of swallowing sound and light, turning even the most mundane footsteps into a cautious whisper. Tonight, the usual hum of indifferent clerks and the rustle of paperwork seemed to dim, replaced by an undercurrent of something far more sinister: conspiracy. Elliot, heart thundering against his ribs like a frantic metronome, pressed himself against the cold, peeling wall of a rarely used hallway. His ink-stained fingers gripped a hastily folded note directions to a secret meeting he had overheard from the ever-unpredictable Mr. Tiddles, the office cat who had proven an unlikely informant. The bureau was a place where lost socks were collected, catalogued, and, ostensibly, Forgotten, but Elliot had learned that beneath the layers of endless filing cabinets and obtuse regulations, there pulsed a bizarre and potent secret. Socks were not mere fabric casualties of laundry day. They were doorways to other dimensions, gateways to realms as whimsical and strange as the office itself. However, tonight was not about discovery or wonder. It was about survival and subterfuge. Elliot adjusted the collar of his ill-fitting jacket, pulling it tighter as he navigated the maze-like passages. The flickering fluorescent lights overhead cast unnatural shadows, stretching and warping the familiar shapes of desks and filing cabinets into monstrous silhouettes. Somewhere ahead, muffled voices wove through the air like smoke, promising answers in danger. He reached the door, marked only by a small brass plaque etched with an inconspicuous senior clerk's conference room. A faint glow seeped from beneath, accompanied by the low, urgent murmur of voices. Elliot's breath caught. Beyond this door, the Bureau's true power brokers were gathered, plotting to wrest control from the tangled bureaucracy and harness the portals for their own ends. Drawing a deep breath, Elliot slipped inside as the door creaked open just enough for him to slip through unnoticed. The room was dimly lit, the fluorescent buzz replaced by the softer, more sinister glow of a peculiar sock sealed in a glass case at the center of a large oval table. Around it sat a semicircle of sharp-suited figures, their faces etched with a mixture of determination and dread. At the head, Ms. Prudence Spindle presided, clipboard in hand, her gaze sharp enough to slice through the thickening tension. "The portals," Ms. Spindle said, her voice clipped and precise, "are not toys for idle curiosity. They are the very fabric that maintains or threatens the order we have painstakingly built. If left unchecked, they will unravel everything." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. But Elliot caught the glint in some of his ambition, hunger for power cloaked in the language of duty. They spoke of weaponizing the portals, of using the lost socks as instruments of control across alternate realities. The absurdity of wielding cosmic chaos as a bureaucratic tool was not lost on Elliot, and yet the danger was all too real. Crouching behind a towering filing cabinet, Elliot struggled to steady his racing pulse as he jotted down notes with a stolen pen. The stale scent of old paper and leather filled his nostrils, mingling with the metallic tents of anxiety. His mind raced, cataloguing every detail, every name, every plan. Here, in this room thick with whispered conspiracies, the fate of countless dimensions was being decided by those who saw magic only as a problem to be managed. As the meeting drew to a close, the clerks gathered their files with a flurry of paper and whispered threats. Ms. Spindle's final words echoed in the chamber, a chilling reminder of the stakes. Order must be preserved at all costs. Elliot slipped away into the shadowed corridors, clutching the stolen intelligence like a lifeline. The silence that greeted him was oppressive, yet strangely comforting. He was no longer just an intern lost in the monotony of paperwork. He was a player in a cosmic game, armed with knowledge and a growing resolve to protect the whimsical truth from being crushed beneath the weight of bureaucracy. Back at his cluttered desk, Elliot spread out the notes, the glow of the peculiar sock on his desk casting playful shadows across the scattered papers. The battle lines were drawn, and the absurd clash between cosmic wonder and bureaucratic control was entering a new, dangerous phase. But Elliot was ready. With Harold's wisdom, Mina's pragmatism, and an irrepressible sense of humor, he would navigate the madness, one lost sock at a time. Yet, as he stared at the glowing sock, a question simmered beneath the surface. How could one intern hope to outwit a legion of senior clerks sworn to uphold order when the very fabric of reality was at stake? The answer, Elliot suspected, lay not in rules or regulations, but in embracing the delightful, chaotic absurdity of it all. And so, with a wry smile and mismatched socks peeking from beneath his sleeves, Elliot prepared to step back into the labyrinth, ready to turn the tide in the most bureaucratic battle the multiverse had ever seen. Elliot stared at the peculiar sock lying on the cluttered desk before him, its fabric swirling with faint iridescent hues that seemed to pulse softly in the dim light of the alcove. The hum of the fluorescent bulbs overhead was almost drowned out by his own quickening heartbeat. This was it, the culmination of Daysnow, weeks of whispered theories, furtive experiments, and stolen moments away from the drudgery of filing endless paperwork. "You ready?" Harold's voice broke through Elliot's reverie, his wild grey hair bouncing as he leaned over a patchwork of bizarre devices assembled haphazardly on the desk. "This one's unlike any other. If it behaves as I think, well, we might just blow the roof off the entire bureau." Elliot swallowed hard, adjusting his mismatched socks beneath the desk, a small, ironic comfort amid the mounting tension. "I'm ready. Let's see what secrets you're hiding." With a careful, almost reverent touch, Elliot pressed the sock against an odd contraption that resembled a cross between a filing cabinet handle and a Geiger counter. The air shimmered immediately, colors bleeding into one another like oil on water. A portal flickered open, a swirling vortex of whimsy and unknown possibility. At first, the portal pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, filling the alcove with a soft, otherworldly glow. Elliot reached out a tentative hand, fingers trembling. The fabric of reality seemed thin here, and the faint scent of lavender and old books wafted through the air. It was beautiful, mesmerizing. But then, without warning, the portal shuddered violently. The iridescent glow intensified, casting strange shadows that writhed across the walls. Filing cabinets rattled as if caught in a low earthquake, and loose papers lifted, swirling in eddies like autumn leaves caught in a sudden gust. "Elliot, shut it down," Harold shouted, his voice cracking with a mix of awe and panic. He scrambled to the console, fingers flying over buttons and dials, but the portal seemed to have a mind of its own. Mina appeared at the entrance to the alcove, clutching her ever-present coffee mug like a talisman. Her eyes widened as she took in the chaos, the flickering lights, the floating paperwork, the faint hum growing louder, more urgent. "This is a mess," she muttered, eyebrows knitting together. "We're going to get reprimanded, for sure. Or worse." Elliot's mind raced. He had wanted to understand the true nature of these sock portals, but this was beyond anything he imagined. The portal's instability was causing ripples, not just in their immediate surroundings, but seemingly in multiple dimensions. Through the glowing chaos, he caught glimpses. A corridor lined with candy-striped trees, a vast library floating on clouds, a carnival where laughter echoed endlessly. And then came the sounds, unearthly echoes, whispers of voices not quite human, the distant clang of bells from some unknown world. The office cat, Mr. Tiddles, appeared from nowhere, tail flicking lazily as he weaved through the disarray. He seemed strangely unfazed, almost amused, as if he understood the absurdity better than any of them. "Focus," Harold barked, shoving aside a stack of unruly papers. "We need to stabilize the portal before it tears open something worse." Elliot nodded, desperation sharpening his wit. He darted to a filing cabinet, yanking open drawers to grab folders filled with hastily scribbled notes and half-forgotten experiments. Frantically, they worked together, Harold tinkering with the devices, Mina organizing the chaotic paperwork, Elliot attempting to communicate with the portal through the sock itself, murmuring soothing nonsense as if coaxing a temperamental cat. Suddenly, the portal convulsed again, and the entire alcove seemed to tilt. The hum escalated into a cacophony of discordant tones, and the ground beneath their feet vibrated. Elliot's heart leaped into his throat. If this kept up, the bureau itself might be torn apart. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the portal stilled. The iridescent glow dimmed to a soft pulse, the air settled, and the office returned to its usual drab lighting. Papers drifted gently back onto desks, filing cabinets steadied, and the hum faded into a distant murmur. Before anyone could breathe a sigh of relief, the sharp clack of heels echoed down the corridor. Ms. Prudence Spindle appeared, clipboard in hand, her glare slicing through the aftermath like a sharpened blade. "What in the name of protocol is going on here?" she demanded, voice razor-edged. "This chaos is unacceptable." Elliot swallowed, guilt and defiance warring within him. It was an experiment, Ms. Spindle. A necessary risk to understand the portals better. "Necessary," she hissed, stepping into the alcove, eyes scanning the scattered papers and flickering lights with disgust. "You are jeopardizing the Bureau's order and safety. I will be reporting this incident immediately." Harold stepped forward, wild hair ruffling as he spoke with unexpected calm. "Order and chaos are two sides of the same coin, Prudence. You can't have one without the other. This incident, while messy, has revealed the fragility of the balance we maintain." Ms. Spindle's eyes narrowed. "Balance is maintained through control, not reckless curiosity." Before the argument could escalate, Mr. Tiddles leaped onto the desk, scattering papers anew and drawing a rare, amused smirk from Elliot. The absurdity of the moment was not lost on anyone. As the tension hung thick in the air, Elliot realized that this incident was more than a simple mishap. It was a turning point a sock too far into the unknown, exposing the Bureau's precarious hold on the multiverse and setting the stage for the battles and revelations yet to come. And as the portal's soft glow pulsed faintly once more, Elliot knew there was no turning back. The Bureau of Lost Socks was about to change forever. The aftermath of the portal incident stretched across the following days like a slow-moving storm. The normally staid corridors buzzed with whispered rumors and furtive glances. Elliot found himself at the center, a reluctant figurehead of chaos wrapped in mismatched socks. Ms. Spindle's presence was more oppressive than ever. Clipboard clutched tightly, she prowled the office, enforcing stricter regulations and issuing terse warnings. "No more experiments," she declared in a meeting that felt more like a tribunal. "We must preserve order." But Elliot knew better. The incident had opened something deeper, a crack in the bureaucratic facade that hid a universe of possibilities. With Harold and Mina at his side, he began piecing together the threads of what the sock portals truly represented. Gateways not just to whimsical realms, but also to power struggles that could ripple across realities. One afternoon, while sifting through the still disorganized paperwork, Elliot caught sight of Mr. Tiddles sitting serenely atop a filing cabinet, tail twitching thoughtfully. The cat's inscrutable gaze seemed to say, "This is only the beginning." Elliot smiled wryly and adjusted his mismatched socks. "Then let's make sure we're ready." The Bureau of Lost Socks, with all its absurdity and endless paperwork, was alive with new meaning. And somewhere, deep within the labyrinth of filing cabinets and forgotten corners, the peculiar sock pulsed softly, waiting for the next adventure. The air in the dimly lit filing cabinet labyrinth was thick with anticipation and the faint scent of old paper mixed with something indefinably electric. Elliot's heart pounded in rhythm with the flickering of the portals, their iridescent hues casting eerie shadows that danced along the narrow corridors, illuminating stacks of paperwork and faded filing labels that seemed to whisper secrets in the silence. Somewhere in the maze, the rogue faction was mobilizing their weaponized sock portals, and the very fabric of reality threatened to unravel. "This is it," Harold hissed, his wild grey hair bristling with static as he clutched a peculiar sock that pulsed with a strange, almost hypnotic energy. "If they succeed, the boundaries between worlds will collapse. We can't let that happen." Mina adjusted her glasses with a sharp snap, her pragmatic gaze scanning the dimness for threats. "We need a plan that doesn't involve running headlong into the chaos. Bureaucratic or not, this office has rules even if they're maddeningly obtuse." Elliot swallowed his nervousness, the ink stains on his fingers suddenly feeling heavier. "So, what? We out-bureaucrat the bureaucrats?" "Precisely," Harold said with a grin. "And maybe throw in a bit of interdimensional mischief." Suddenly, a ripple of discordant light burst forth as a portal near the faction's makeshift command flickered violently, spilling bursts of shimmering energy that warped the air. Elliot caught sight of Ms. Prudence Spindle standing rigid at the center of the storm, her sharp suit billowing as sheets of paperwork swirled like autumn leaves caught in a tempest. Her clipboard, usually the symbol of her ironclad control, trembled in her hands. "Order," she barked, her voice slicing through the chaos. "Contain the breach." But the breach was no longer just a bureaucratic inconvenience. It was a living, breathing anomaly, a chaotic pulse that twisted the very essence of the office. Filing cabinets groaned as they stretched and warped. Corridors bent into impossible geometries, and the hum of fluorescent lights distorted into eerie, otherworldly tones. Elliot darted forward, dodging a sudden cascade of sentient paperclips that clattered and chattered like metallic jesters, their animated forms gleaming with mischievous intent. The absurdity of the moment was not lost on him. The very tools of bureaucracy had become agents of chaos. "Mina, watch out," he shouted as a particularly bold paperclip lunged toward her coffee mug, sending it tumbling in slow motion. "Honestly," Mina muttered, swiping the paperclip away with a flick of her wrist, "I'm starting to think this place is cursed." Harold's fingers danced over the pulsating sock, which seemed to resonate with the ambient chaos. "If we can recalibrate the portal's frequency," he explained breathlessly, "we might collapse the faction's control matrix long enough to sever their hold." Elliot nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "Then, let's do it. For the Bureau and for the lost socks." As they maneuvered through the shifting realities, colors bled beyond the visible spectrum, gravity warped unpredictably, and the hum of the office was replaced by a symphony of surreal sounds, whispers of forgotten paperwork, the soft thud of mismatched socks dropping through unseen dimensions, and the distant meow of Mr. Tiddles, whose mysterious appearances had become an odd but comforting constant. The confrontation reached its crescendo in a vast chamber where portals overlapped, creating a kaleidoscope of impossible vistas. The rogue faction's leader, a stern-faced clerk armed with a weaponized sock, advanced with bureaucratic zealotry fueling his every move. "You don't understand," he sneered. "Control is the only way to prevent chaos." "Control is an illusion," Elliot replied, stepping forward with a wry smile, "especially when it's enforced by paperwork and fear." A chaotic battle ensued, blending slapstick moments, like a rogue stapler firing staples like shurikens with cosmic stakes, as socks transformed into portals and corridors folded in on themselves. Elliot's wit and adaptability proved invaluable, dodging attacks, redirecting chaotic energy and rallying his allies. In a decisive moment, Harold manipulated the pulsating sock to emit a stabilizing frequency, causing the weaponized portals to flicker and collapse. Mina coordinated the evacuation of displaced paperwork, ensuring no further bureaucratic chaos would spiral out of control. Ms. Spindle, witnessing the unraveling of her faction's plans, lowered her clipboard, a flicker of reluctant respect in her eyes. The battle had been lost, but the war for the Bureau's soul was far from over. As the corridors settled and the portals quieted, Elliot leaned against a filing cabinet, breathless but triumphant. The lines between order and chaos had been crossed and redrawn, leaving the Bureau forever changed. "So," Mina said, sipping her salvaged coffee, "what now?" Elliot smiled, glancing at the peculiar sock still glowing faintly in his hand. "Now, we keep exploring. Because in a place like this, there's always another lost sock, another world, and another absurd adventure waiting just around the corner." And with that, the Bureau of Lost Socks resumed its endless paperwork and strange magic. Its secret safe for another day at least, until the next sock twitched. The fluorescent lights above flickered in their usual half-hearted manner, casting a pallid glow over the sprawling labyrinth of filing cabinets that composed the heart of the Bureau of Lost Socks. The air was thick, with the scent of aged paper, stale coffee, and something faintly metallica, possibly the essence of an overworked copier, or perhaps the lingering residue of interdimensional magic leaking through the countless portals scattered about. Elliot stood at the center of this chaos, his mismatched socks tapping impatiently against the scuffed linoleum floor as he surveyed the scene. Around him, the rogue faction had gathered an odd congregation of senior clerks with furrowed brows and clipped voices, wielding clipboards like weapons. Ms. Prudence Spindle, the faction's de facto leader, stood at the forefront, her sharp suit impeccable even amidst the disorder. Her clipboard was raised like a scepter, and her glare could have frozen molten bureaucracy in its tracks. "Order," she barked, voice echoing off the cavernous walls. "This farce ends now. The sanctity of our filing system must be preserved." Elliot smirked beneath his breath. If only she knew that the sanctity she so fiercely protected was precisely what had to be dismantled. He glanced briefly at his companions. Harold, wild-haired and wildly enthusiastic, was wrestling a handful of animated socks that twisted and curled like mischievous serpents. Mina, ever the pragmatist, stood near an ancient office intercom, issuing calm instructions to scattered allies, her coffee mug steaming in defiance of the brewing storm. And then there was Mr. Tiddles, the office's unofficial feline mascot, weaving confidently through overturned chairs and piles of paperwork, his green eyes gleaming with uncanny intelligence. The battle was not one of swords or guns, but of paperwork, portals, and the absurd rules that governed them all. Elliot took a deep breath and stepped forward, clutching the peculiar sock that had started it, all the one that twitched and glowed faintly, a living key to the chaos they now embraced. "Ms. Spindle," he began, voice steady despite the whirlwind of events. "You cling to rules written for a world that never accounted for the extraordinary. These portals, these socks, they represent possibility, not disorder." "Possibility," Spindle sneered, "is a euphemism for anarchy, and I will not allow this bureau to descend into chaos under your reckless stewardship." With a flourish, she slammed her clipboard onto a nearby desk. The sound echoed, a sharp punctuation to her declaration. But Elliot was ready. With a practiced flick, he activated the sock, and a portal blossomed open, swirling with iridescent colors. From its build, not destruction, but a flood of paperwork, endless forms and memos, each stamped with bureaucratic seals from dimensions unknown. "You see," Elliot said, voice rising over the din, "bureaucracy is chaos's dance partner. Without one, the other has no rhythm." Harold seized the moment, tossing a particularly unruly sock that morphed mid-air into a flurry of luminescent ribbons, tangling the faction's attempts at order in a literal web of red tape. Mina, ever resourceful, keyed a series of commands into the intercom, summoning reinforcements from distant corners of the office. Clerk number 42 appeared, clipboard clutched tightly, eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and excitement. "Rule 47B, Section 12, he intoned robotically, permits the use of dimensional anomalies in emergency bureaucratic procedures." "Exactly," Elliot grinned. "Let's make this an emergency worth remembering." The battle unfolded as a surreal ballet of paperwork storms, shifting portals, and witty repartee. Ms. Spindle attempted to regain control, brandishing her clipboard like a shield. But the very rules she revered turned against her as Elliot cited obscure clauses and loopholes with gleeful precision. Each attempt to impose order only opened new cracks where chaos could seep through. Somewhere in the melee, Mr. Tiddles darted past, his soft paws silent against the floor as he led Elliot to a neglected filing cabinet, its door slightly ajar. Inside lay the key evidence, the faction's own plans, carelessly filed under miscellaneous. Elliot snatched the documents, waving them triumphantly. "It's over," he declared. "Your plans have been archived and, thus, neutralized." A collective groan rose from the faction as their schemes unraveled like ill-fitted socks. Ms. Spindle's glare faltered, her clipboard lowered in reluctant concession. Elliot stepped back, heart pounding with exhilaration. The bureau was still a mess, a beautiful, absurd mess, but for the first time in a long while, it felt alive with possibility rather than stifled by stagnation. "Balance," he whispered to himself, glancing once more at the glowing sock in his hand. "That's what we need. A balance between order and chaos, rules and whimsy." As the portals flickered and faded, the paperwork settled into neat piles, and the office hummed with a renewed energy. Elliot's journey was far from over, but the absurd battle had been won, and somewhere in the depths of the bureau, the socks waited ready to open new doors, new worlds, and new stories. The battle was absurd, the stakes were cosmic, and the Bureau of Lost Socks would never be the same again. But the question lingered, teasing at the edges of Elliot's mind. How does one govern chaos without becoming its prisoner? The answer, like a missing sock, was elusive, but the adventure, as always, was worth the chase. The aftermath of the conflict settled over the Bureau of Lost Socks like a thick fog, settling into every crevice and cranny of the labyrinthine office. Filing cabinets stood slightly ajar, their doors swinging like tired eyelids after a restless night. Papers lay scattered across desks and floors, some fluttering gently from the soft hum of the flickering fluorescent lights, others stubbornly clinging to their places, as if refusing to acknowledge the chaos that had just transpired. The once pristine monotony of the bureaucracy was now a patchwork of disorder and hesitant hope. Elliot leaned heavily against the doorframe of the main filing room, his mismatched socks peeking out from under his rumpled trousers. His ink-stained fingers twitched as he absent-mindedly traced invisible patterns on the chipped wooden surface. Around him, the sounds of the office awakening from its shocked stupor echoed, the rustling of papers being gathered, the low murmur of clerks exchanging tentative words, the occasional clatter of a dropped stapler. It was as if the bureau itself was breathing, trying to steady its pulse after being jolted awake. "Well," Elliot muttered, to no one in particular, If this isn't the strangest Monday I've ever seen." Harold appeared beside him, his wild grey hair even more disheveled than usual, a crooked smile tugging at his lips. "Strange Mondays are the Bureau's specialty," he replied, eyes twinkling despite the exhaustion etched into his face. "But I dare say this one takes the cake." They moved together through the office, careful not to step on the piles of socks that still littered the corridors, some clean, others mangled and forlorn. Mina was already at her desk, her neat bun slightly loosened from stress, glasses perched precariously on her nose as she shuffled through a mountainous stack of reports and forms. Her ever-present coffee mug steamed gently, a small island of normalcy amid the chaos. "We need to get this place sorted," Mina said without looking up, her tone pragmatic but laced with fatigue. "The higher-ups will want reports, explanations, and assurances. And frankly, I'm not sure we have any of those right now." Elliot nodded. "The sock portals. They're not going anywhere. The Bureau has to accept that. But how do we keep order without crushing the magic that's been unleashed?" Mina sighed, rubbing her temples. "Maybe by accepting that some things can't be controlled." Their conversation was interrupted by the sharp footsteps of Ms. Prudence Spindle, clipboard in hand, slicing through the room like a blade of bureaucratic resolve. Her trademark sharp suit seemed almost out of place in the disheveled setting, and her disapproving glare scanned the room with practiced precision. "This state is unacceptable," she intoned, her voice cold but tinged with a reluctant undercurrent of concern. "Order must be restored before the next audit." Elliot exchanged a glance with Harold and Mina, sensing the familiar rigidity that had once been their opposition, now tempered by a grudging respect born from shared ordeal. "Ms. Spindle," Elliot began cautiously, "perhaps there's value in rethinking what order means around here. The portals have changed everything." Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing, merely tapping her clipboard as if weighing his words against some unseen scale. Across the room, Mr. Tiddles, the office cat, settled atop a mound of lost socks, his green eyes half closed in contentment. His purring was a soothing cadence amid the unsettled atmosphere, a quiet reminder that some things remained unchanged even in the face of cosmic upheaval. As the day wore on, the clerks of the Bureau began the slow, arduous process of rebuilding. Teams formed to devise new filing protocols that accounted for the peculiarities of sock portals, and debates sparked over how much freedom the portals could be allowed without jeopardizing the fabric of reality, or the sanity of the office staff. Elliot found himself at the center of these discussions, his earlier indecision replaced by a measured confidence. The journey from curious intern to reluctant hero had left its mark, and now he carried the weight of responsibility with a wry smile and a twinkle of whimsy. Late in the afternoon, as shadows lengthened and the hum of fluorescent lights softened, Elliot stood by a window overlooking the endless rows of filing cabinets and the tangled maze that was the Bureau. Somewhere within that maze lay the gateways to countless worlds, each as bizarre and capricious as the socks that opened them. Balance, Elliot whispered to himself, between chaos and order, between the mundane and the magical. That's the real task ahead. And with that, the Bureau of Lost Socks began a new chapter, one where absurdity and bureaucracy danced a delicate waltz, and where even the smallest, most overlooked sock could hold the key to worlds beyond imagining. But as the lights flickered once more and the office cat stretched languidly atop his sock throne, a faint glow pulsed from a lone sock half hidden beneath a desk, as if reminding Elliot that the story was far from over. "So," Elliot said with a grin, "what do you say we see where this one leads?" The room seemed to hold its breath, and somewhere deep within the Bureau, a portal shimmered faintly, waiting. The endless corridors of the Bureau of Lost Socks had never seemed so quiet. The usual cacophony of clacking keyboards, rustling papers, and the occasional frustrated sigh had softened to a gentle murmur, as if the building itself was taking a breath. In this rare lull, Elliot found himself seated cross-legged on the cold linoleum floor of a seldom-used filing alcove, a small circle of odd socks forming an eccentric perimeter around him. Each sock, in its own way, seemed to vibrate faintly with a secret energy, a pulse just beyond the grasp of ordinary perception. Harold sat nearby, his wild grey hair tousled as usual, eyes alight with the kind of fervour that only a true enthusiast could muster. "You see," he began, waving a hand toward a particularly garish argyle sock, "these little fabric gateways are more than just lost laundry. They're stories waiting to be told, worlds waiting to be explored. And we've only scratched the surface." Elliot's fingers idly traced the frayed edge of a blue sock, the fabric surprisingly warm beneath his touch. "It's strange," he mused, "how something so mundane can hold such magic. It's like finding a secret in plain sight, hidden beneath a veil of bureaucracy and paperwork." Harold chuckled, a sound like dry leaves rustling. "Bureaucracy is just a way to cage the chaos, my boy. But chaos has a way of slipping through the cracks. These socks are proof." From her usual post by the filing cabinets, Mina appeared, coffee mug in hand, her neat bun slightly askew from the day's stress. She leaned against a cabinet, arms crossed, her sharp eyes fixed on Elliot. "I never thought I'd say this," she admitted with a half smile, "but after everything we've seen, maybe there really is something to your sock theories." Elliot looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "You believe it?" "I believe there's more to this place than endless paperwork and lost socks," Mina replied, her tone pragmatic but tinged with newfound wonder. "I don't know about all the dimensions and portals, but I believe in the magic of mystery." A soft meow broke the conversation as Mr. Tiddles, the scruffy grey tabby who had become the Bureau's unofficial mascot, padded silently into the circle. He paused beside a sock pulsing with a gentle, otherworldly light. Elliot crouched, his heart quickening as he reached out. The sock shimmered beneath his fingertips, a gateway shimmering quietly in the dim light. The hum of fluorescent bulbs overhead mingled with the faint crackle of otherworldly energy, creating an atmosphere thick with possibility. "It's still here," Elliot whispered, awestruck. "The magic." Harold nodded solemnly. "And it's up to us to keep it alive, to guard the secret, to explore it responsibly." The three of them sat together in the glow, the absurdity of their surroundings, the endless files, the buzzing office lights, the ever-present hum of bureaucracy fading into the background. What mattered was the shared understanding, the bond forged in the quiet spaces between paperwork and portals. As the afternoon waned, Elliot found himself drawn to the rain-speckled window overlooking the sprawling city. The skies were a muted grey, the streets glistening with recent showers. But to Elliot, the world beyond seemed alive with endless potential. He smiled, a mischievous curl tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Who would have thought," he said softly, "that a lost sock could hold so much meaning?" Mina joined him at the window, sipping her coffee. "Maybe it's not just about lost socks," she said thoughtfully. "Maybe it's about all the little things we overlook, the small mysteries that keep life interesting." Elliot nodded, his gaze drifting back to the labyrinthine office behind them. The Bureau of Lost Socks would always be a place of endless paperwork and strange magic. But now, it was also a sanctuary for secrets and stories, a testament to the whimsical possibilities hidden in the most ordinary corners of existence. And as the rain tapped a gentle rhythm against the glass, Elliot knew that their journey was far from over. The socks still whispered their secrets, the portals still beckoned, and somewhere in the stacks of forgotten laundry, the next adventure awaited. With a final glance at the softly glowing sock in his hand, Elliot turned back to the heart of the bureau, ready to face whatever absurdity and wonder the next day might bring. The secret of the lost socks was safe for now, but like all good secrets, it was waiting to be discovered again by those curious enough to look beyond the mundane, and Elliot was nothing if not curious. The faint hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in Ms. Prudence Spindle's office, casting a sterile glow over the stacks of meticulously organized files that climbed toward the ceiling like silent sentinels guarding secrets. For once, the usual sharpness in Spindle's eyes was muted, replaced by a softness that matched the dimness of the room. She sat motionless at her desk, fingers loosely gripping a worn photograph that had clearly seen better days. The image revealed a younger Prudence, standing beside a chaotic spillage of socks and strange devices, an incident from years ago that had nearly unraveled a minor portal within the bureau. Back then, she had been brimming with ambition and a rigid determination to control every aspect of the bureau's operations. But the memory now felt like a ghost, haunting the edges of her mind with whispers of failure and imperfection. A sudden knock at the door startled her. "Come in," she called, her voice steadier than she felt. Elliot entered cautiously, his usual disheveled appearance slightly subdued by the weight of the conversation he intended to have. The ink stains on his fingers seemed to smudge his nervousness, but his eyes were steady. Mina followed behind, clutching her ever-present coffee mug, her pragmatic gaze flickering between the two. "Ms. Spindle," Elliot began, "we've all seen how much strain the recent events have put on everyone here. But I think there's a way to balance things between order and the chaos the sock portals bring." For a moment, Prudence regarded him silently. Then she sighed, a sound heavy with years of suppressed frustration. "You don't know how long I've fought to keep this place from falling apart," she said quietly. "Every rule, every procedure, it's all I have to hold back the tide. But sometimes I wonder if the tide is stronger than me." Mina stepped forward, her tone softer than usual. "You don't have to bear it alone. We're all part of this bureau, and maybe it's time to admit that some things are beyond control." Harold shuffled in, his wild grey hair looking even more untamed in the dim light. "Chaos isn't the enemy," he said with a crooked smile. "It's just a different kind of order we haven't learned to understand yet." The room fell into a contemplative silence, broken only by the ticking of an ancient clock on the wall. Prudence looked around at the faces before her, the hopeful intern, the steadfast colleague, the eccentric mentor, and felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself in a long time: hope. Suddenly, the lights flickered and dimmed, shadows stretching along the walls like spectral fingers. For a brief moment, the bureau itself seemed to embody the delicate dance between light and dark, order and chaos. Prudence's hand tightened around the photograph before she set it down gently. "Perhaps," she whispered, "it's time to stop fighting the tide and start learning to swim with it." Elliot smiled, a spark of their shared journey reflected in his eyes. "Then let's find a new way together." As the dim office lights brightened once more, a subtle shift rippled through the bureau. The rigid lines of bureaucracy, long thought unbreakable, now seemed just a little more flexible. The dance between absurdity and order had found a new rhythm, and the story of lost socks and those who dared to unlock their secrets was far from over. And with that, the chapter closed on Ms. Spindle's lament, not as an end, but as a beginning. The office, a place of endless paperwork and whispered secrets, had revealed one of its most guarded truths. Beneath the layers of rules and reprimands, there was a human heart grappling with the impossible. The Bureau of Lost Socks was no longer simply a battleground between control and chaos. It was a living, breathing paradox, much like the socks it contained. The journey ahead promised more absurdities, more whimsy, and more moments that defied logic. But for now, the quiet understanding between Elliot and Ms. Spindle marked a fragile peace of pause in the relentless hum of bureaucracy that allowed for a glimpse of something magical, something new. And somewhere in the distance, Mr. Tiddles the cat watched with inscrutable eyes, as if knowing that the next chapter of the Bureau's story was already unfolding, one lost sock at a time. Elliot stood before the softly pulsing gateway, a sock unlike any other in his hands. Its fabric shimmered faintly, colors rippling like oil on water, beckoning him forward with the promise of secrets yet uncovered. The office around him buzzed with routine, the hum of printers and the rustle of papers a familiar background soundtrack to his days. Yet here, at this threshold, the monotony fractured, revealing a kaleidoscope of possibility. He adjusted the cuff of his shirt, fingers ink-stained from endless forms and notes, and glanced down at his own mismatched socks, one striped blue and grey, the other a solid scarlet. They were his quiet rebellion against the stifling sameness of the Bureau, a small symbol of the chaos he'd come to accept and now champion. "Ready," Harold's voice cracked through the stillness, wild grey hair askew, spectacles perched precariously on his nose. Beside him, Mina sipped her ever-present coffee, eyes sharp and wary but supportive. Mr. Tiddles, the inscrutable office cat, wound around Elliot's legs, tail flicking lazily. Elliot nodded. "Let's see what's on the other side." Together, they stepped through the portal, the world dissolving into a swirl of colors and sounds. When the haze cleared, they found themselves in a dimension that defied earthly logic, a landscape of impossible geometry, where gravity seemed optional and whimsy reigned. Trees with leaves like fluttering bookmarks whispered secrets, and creatures with too many eyes blinked in curious patterns. Elliot's heart raced. This was why he had endured the tedious paperwork, the endless rules, the sneers of Ms. Spindle. This was the magic beneath the mundane, the absurdity lurking in the lost and forgotten. Harold fumbled with his notebook, eager to capture details, but distracted by a small, hopping creature that seemed to regard him with amusement. Mina's gaze was vigilant, cataloging exits and potential hazards with pragmatic efficiency. "Remember," Elliot said, his voice steady despite the wonder, "we're explorers, but we're also responsible. We can't let curiosity turn into chaos." The journey through this bizarre realm was filled with moments of laughter, surprise, and careful navigation. They gathered samples, took notes, and shared stories, each step reinforcing their bond and deepening their understanding of the delicate balance they must maintain. When they returned, the office felt different. The usual drone of clerks filing socks was punctuated by whispers of Elliot's expedition. Eyes that once dismissed him now followed his every move with cautious interest. Some colleagues dared to smile, others exchanged speculative glances, and a few even approached with tentative questions. Elliot took to the center of the main room, scattering his notes and sketches across a cleared desk. His voice carried through the space as he recounted their journey, painting vivid images of the strange dimension and the lessons learned. "The Bureau isn't just a repository for lost socks," he declared. "It's a gateway to countless worlds, each with its own rules and wonders. Our job isn't to suppress the chaos, but to understand it, to steward it with care." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Change was in the air. From the back of the room, Miss Prudence Spindle observed quietly, clipboard clasped tightly in her hands. Her sharp gaze softened imperceptibly as she listened, the rigid lines of her face betraying a flicker of conflicted respect. Perhaps there was space for something new, even within the strict order she had spent her career defending. Elliot caught her eye and offered a small, hopeful smile. The journey ahead would be uncertain, fraught with absurdity and challenge, but he was no longer just the intern overwhelmed by the Bureau's endless paperwork. He was an explorer, a guardian of the strange and wonderful, and this was only the beginning. As the office settled into an uneasy but promising calm, Elliot's thoughts turned to the next portal, the next sock, the next adventure waiting just beyond the veil of the ordinary. Somewhere in the labyrinth of lost things, magic shimmered quietly, waiting to be found again. With a purposeful step, he moved toward the filing cabinets, ready to lead the Bureau into a future where whimsy and order danced in balance, where the absurd was embraced rather than feared. The Bureau of Lost Socks would never be the same, and neither would he. The hum of the fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead, an almost constant soundtrack to the endless shuffle of paper and the muted tapping of keyboards. The Bureau of Lost Socks, as always, was a place where the mundane and the extraordinary rubbed shoulders in a dance that only the most attuned could appreciate. At the heart of this curious institution stood Elliot, the once overwhelmed intern who had grown into something much more, a reluctant guardian of secrets, a bridge between worlds both bureaucratic and cosmic. It was late afternoon, and the fading sun cast long, dusty beams through the slatted blinds, turning the office into a lattice of light and shadow. Elliot held in his hand a single sock, no longer just a lost piece of fabric, but a glowing gateway to endless possibilities. The sock pulsed faintly, its colors shifting subtly like the surface of a calm sea touched by a breeze. Around him, the office was alive with quiet activity. Clerks filing, phones ringing, and the occasional meow of Mr. Tiddles weaving through the legs of desks and chairs. Elliot paused before the towering filing cabinets that stretched to the ceiling, their drawers neatly labeled with codes only decipherable to the initiated. This was the labyrinthine heart of the Bureau, a place where every lost sock was catalogued, its origins traced, and its potential contained. But containment was no longer the goal. Thanks to months of exploration, countless adventures through portals, and a few near catastrophes, the Bureau was evolving. Across the room, Miss Prudence Spindle watched with a clipboard clutched tightly in her hands. Her sharp suit was as immaculate as ever, and her glare as piercing. But today there was something differenter, faint hesitation behind her eyes, a crack in the armor of rigid control. Elliot caught her glance and smiled, a small gesture of peace forged through shared trials. "Elliot," she called, her voice carrying the crisp authority that had once been a source of dread. "Your proposal for the new filing system." He stepped forward, holding up a tablet displaying intricate diagrams and flowcharts interwoven with notes about portal behavior and sock dimensions. "It's a hybrid system. It respects the need for order but allows for the unpredictability of the portals. We can't cage magic with paperwork alone, but we can guide it." Miss Spindle studied the screen, her lips pressing into a thin line. The office around them seemed to hold its breath. After a long moment, she nodded, just slightly. "Very well, we shall proceed." A murmur of surprise passed through the nearby clerks, and for a fleeting second, the Bureau felt less like a fortress of tedium and more like a cradle of possibility. Meanwhile, Harold shuffled toward the coffee machine, a wild grin on his face and a stray thread dangling from his mismatched jacket. Mina followed, her usual skeptical expression softened by a rare smile. Mr. Tiddles, the unofficial office mascot, darted between their feet, his bell tinkling merrily. "You know," Harold said, pouring a generous splash of cream into his cup, "I never thought I'd see the day when bureaucracy and cosmic chaos found common ground." Mina chuckled, adjusting her glasses. "Only here, Harold. Only here." Their laughter mingled with the gentle clatter of mugs and the rustle of papers, a small island of warmth amid the endless paperwork. Back at his desk, Elliot glanced once more at the glowing sock. It beckoned him, a silent invitation to step beyond the boundaries of the known. He took a deep breath, feeling the familiar thrill of the unknown coursing through him. The bureau was his home now, a place where the absurd and the orderly danced in tandem, where lost things found purpose, and where every sock held a story waiting to be told. With a final glance around the officer place, forever caught between chaos and control, Elliot slipped the sock onto his hand. The air shimmered, a soft hum rising as the portal flickered to life. He stepped forward, feeling the fabric of reality ripple and fold, the colors of the alternate dimension spilling into the drab gray of the office. As the mundane world faded behind him, Elliot smiled, ready to explore new realms, to uncover new mysteries, and to carry the bureau's secret into the infinite tapestry of existence. And somewhere, deep within the labyrinth of filing cabinets, the socks twitched and shimmered, alive with possibility. The Bureau of Lost Socks remained, as always, a place of endless paperwork, peculiar magic, and now, a fragile but beautiful balance between order and whimsy. But the adventure, as Elliot knew, was far from over. The soft clatter of footsteps echoed faintly in the corridors as the office began to wind down for the day. Yet, in the quiet corners, whispers of new ideas and possibilities stirred. Elliot's journey had transformed not just himself, but the very soul of the Bureau. In this place where the lost were found and the forgotten remembered, the impossible had become routine, and the routine a canvas for the extraordinary. And as long as there were socks to lose and worlds to discover, the Bureau would endure chaotic, bureaucratic, and wonderfully absurd. The end, or rather a new beginning.